Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back. Today I'll be sharing how to make this mushroom beanie on your circular knitting machine. This is a pretty easy project, but we will be manipulating some stitches later on, so this may not be the best project for a total beginner. However, I will be bringing y'all through the more advanced parts of this project step by step, so don't feel too intimidated. For this project, you'll need a 46 or 48 pin circular knitting machine. I'll be using a 48 pin Sentro today, but you can use an Addy or any other similar circular knitting machine. You'll also need 2 skeins of worsted weight yarn, one in red and one in white. I'm using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in Garnet Heather and in white. You'll need a crochet hook. Almost any size will work, but I'm using a 5mm hook. You'll also need a loom pick, a darning needle, and some scissors. The head circumference of this beanie is 19 inches, and that may seem small, but remember that this beanie is very stretchy, and the total length of this beanie is 11 3/4 inches. The last thing I wanted to mention before we get into the tutorial is that I have a free written pattern for this beanie on my website, so if you'd prefer to follow that or you'd just like to pull it up to supplement this video, then you can find the link in the description. So with that, let's get started. To get started with our beanie, we need to make sure our machine is in the tube setting, and we're going to take our red yarn and we're going to cast on all the way around our machine. So to do that, you're going to put a tail into the center of your machine of your red yarn, then hook the yarn around your first pin, and then start cranking your machine slowly. You're going to go behind this pin, in front of this pin, behind this pin. You're going to alternate all the way around your machine. Alright, so we were in front on the first pin, so we should end behind the last pin, and we're going to put our yarn through the yarn and tension guides. I'm putting my yarn through the middle hole in my tension guide. That's the tension that I would like for my yarn. If you're using worsted weight yarn, that's probably where you're going to want to put your yarn as well. And now we're going to knit 70 rows with this red yarn. So I like to start my row counter over because our cast on row doesn't count as a row. So just personally, it helps me keep track better. So I'm going to start mine over so that I know that this next row that I do will be the first row. Alright, so I've just finished my 70th round, so I'm going to put the remainder of my yarn, which isn't much, into the center of my machine here. Take it out of your tension guide and your yarn guide, and either cut it or put it into the center of the machine. So now again, I'm going to start my row counter over. It just is easier for me to count that way, but you know, do whatever is easiest for you. So I'm going to set mine back to 0. And I'm going to take my white yarn, my color B yarn, and put a tail into the center of the machine. Put it through my yarn and tension guides, and you see we're putting it in between our final peg and our first peg, and we put our red yarn in between there as well. And now we're just gonna continue and knit. So that's how you change colors. It's really easy. After we do a round, we'll come back and we can tie a little knot with these two to close up the hole that will appear right between these 2 stitches, since this yarn is not attached to each other, but we'll do that in a minute. So let's go ahead and we'll knit one row really quickly with our color B yarn. There, we've knit one row. We can go ahead and tie a knot with these 2 strands here. Alright, that'll close up the hole that would have appeared between these 2 pins. That won't appear now. So now we're going to knit 14 more rows with our white yarn. So it'll be 15 in total because we just knit one row already with our white yarn. and then I'll come back and show y'all how we're gonna do the ribbing. Okay, so we've just finished our 15th row, so now we're going to create the ribbing. So first, to create the ribbing, you're going to need your loom pick. This is a really essential tool. If you don't have one, I highly encourage you to get one. I think you can do the ribbing without it, but it's going to be very challenging, so I would just recommend you get a loom pick. They're really cheap. I think I got mine for like $3 or $4 on Amazon, and I'll have it linked in the description if you don't have one and you need to get one. I would highly recommend getting one. So we're going to be creating ribbing on every other pin, and we're going to do that all the way around our project. So this is the first pin of our row that we're on, and we're going to just turn our handle a little bit until the second pin comes up just a bit, and we're going to grab this pin, just pull it up a little bit, take your loom pick and grab the stitch that's on this pin and take it off the machine, just like that. Now you're going to grab your project like this, and with your loom pick, just take apart these stitches, all of the white stitches that we've created. This is called dropping the stitches. We are dropping all of our stitches here, and we're going to drop all of the white ones. So stop once you get to a red stitch, like this. You see there's this little loop here. We're not going to drop that one. Then we're going to take our crochet hook, and again, it doesn't really matter what size you use. I'm using a 5mm just because that's what I like, but you can kind of use any size, you know, within reason. So you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to put it into this first red loop here with the hook pointed towards you and the handle going into the center of the machine. Then you're going to put your hook under this first white strand of yarn while it still is in this loop here. Grab the loop with your fingers and just pull that white strand through the red loop. Now you have a white loop on your hook. Now we're going to do that again. Put your hook under this next strand of yarn, pull it through the loop on your hook, and just repeat that all the way up your project. And make sure that you grab the strands in order. You don't want to, you know, accidentally skip this one and grab this one instead. You don't want to do that. That's going to create a mistake in your project. So just make sure you're grabbing them in order. Pull it through the loop, grab it, pull it through the loop. Continue that all the way up your project till you get to the last one. Then once you've done this last one, you're going to put it back on the pin there, just like that. And we've created a column of ribbing. So now slowly crank the handle of your machine. You may want to kind of push this down so it gets over those two little teeth there, and knit the first stitch there. And keep turning. We're skipping the third pin, and we're just going to crank our handle enough until the fourth pin just comes up like this. So we created ribbing on the second, so now we're going to create ribbing on the fourth. Grab your loom pick, grab the stitch that's on your fourth pin and take it off. Undo these stitches. You can kind of just pull them a bit, but you know, you might need your loom pick to help some of them along as well. But don't go too far, because you don't want to accidentally drop a stitch that you don't mean to drop. And if you do happen to drop a stitch that you don't mean to drop, I do have a tutorial available for how to fix dropped stitches, and I can link that in the description for y'all in case that happens to you. It's easy to happen when you're when you're actually creating these drop stitches, sometimes you'll accidentally drop a stitch that you don't mean to. So I will link a tutorial for how to fix that if you do need that. So grab your crochet hook, and we're just going to do the same thing. Insert it into that first red loop there, and then just pull these strands through. And then put it back on the hook. See, it may look a little wonky here from you messing with the stitches, but you really, after we take this off of the machine, you're really not going to be able to tell. It won't really matter, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, so now we'll repeat that one more time, and then I'll just let y'all free, I'll let y'all loose to continue this on your own all the way around your project. So we're going to knit slowly. Make sure that as you're knitting, these stitches are getting knit. Sometimes the loop will want to pop off of the needle a bit since you just took it off of the needle to do the ribbing. So just pay close attention to this side as you are slowly knitting to make sure that those stitches are actually getting knit. So we just want to crank our handle enough until this 6th pin comes up. So again, we're just going to do the same thing, and I'll just leave y'all to continue doing that all the way around your project. And there we have it. So we just completed our 16th row as we were creating all of our columns of ribbing. Now we need to knit 39 more rows for a total of 55 rows with the white yarn. All right, we are finished making our tube. So now we're going to cast off. So to cast off, we just need to grab a pretty long strand of our white yarn here and just cut it. We're going to take our yarn out of the yarn intention guides and just put it in the middle here for now. And we're going to knit without any yarn in our yarn intention guides almost all the way around our machine. Just about there. Right when the final peg starts to pop its head up. We'll grab our darning needle and thread that long strand of white yarn through it. And then we'll go through and pick up every single stitch. So we started with this first pin right here. Then we'll move on to the second. And then third, fourth, fifth, just pick them all up in order all the way around your project. And then as you're coming closer to the end of your project here, you're going to need to crank your handle a little bit more just to release all of those stitches. We'll make sure that it doesn't come off the machine too early. There we go. And that is how you cast off. So you can remove your project and I will show y'all the next step. Okay, so this is what came off of the machine and we're going to want to give it a good stretch. And this is what we have. We have a really long tube. The red part is much longer than the white part and we have this nice little bit of ribbing here. So now what we're going to do is create all of the little white dots on the top of our mushroom here on the red part, and we're going to use white yarn and we're just going to duplicate stitch all around this red part of our hat. So I'll show y'all how to do your first duplicate stitch and where to place it so that you can continue on with the pattern on your own. And then I will put up a little chart that just kind of has the pattern all laid out for you. You do not have to follow my duplicate stitch pattern that I am going to be doing, but if you would like to, then I will have this chart available for y'all. So to get started with the duplicate stitching, we're going to take our white yarn and a darning needle. Just put your white yarn through the darning needle, and we're going to need quite a lot. I don't really measure how much I use, and it'll probably depend on how many white dots you'd like to make, but you know, get quite a bit of yarn at first, and you'll probably have to grab more later, but that's okay. It honestly is a little easier if you're doing just a few yards of this white yarn at a time. Otherwise, it'll be pretty difficult to handle. So get a few yards of this white yarn, put it through your darning needle, and then we can go ahead and get started. So to start, we're going to put our hand inside of our tube with our darning needle and thread, and we are going to find any rib column here and then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red stitches. We're going to put our needle through the middle of the 5th stitch that we counted, and we're going to bring up our white yarn through the inside of our tube. And then we're going to put our darning needle through the 2 strands of this 3rd stitch here. So skip the 4th stitch and then put your needle through the 2 strands of this 3rd stitch and pull the yarn through. And there we've created the first half of our duplicate stitch. Now to finish off the duplicate stitch, we just need to put our needle back through the middle of that 5th stitch that we counted, right where we brought our yarn up. We're going to put our needle back through that exact same spot and pull our yarn to the inside of our tube. And there we have our first duplicate stitch. So now you're just going to go through those exact same motions to create the rest of the duplicate stitching all the way around the red part of your beanie. So here I have provided a chart for y'all to reference when doing the rest of your duplicate stitching. I thought it'd be a lot easier for y'all to just reference this chart rather than have me try to count all of the stitches and bring you through where to put each duplicate stitch. I think that would just be really convoluted and confusing, so hopefully this chart is helpful enough to y'all to complete the rest of this duplicate stitching. So here at the bottom you can see there is a row of white stitches, and that is that first row of ribbing that we made. So you can orient yourselves to this pattern. You understand where each stitch is going to go in relation to the ribbing, and then just continue this pattern all the way around and all the way up the red part of your tube. And once you've completed all of the duplicate stitching, then we can come back and I will show y'all how to assemble your beanie. Okay, I've finished all of my duplicate stitching, so now I need to go inside of here actually and secure all of my ends. So let's do that really quickly. Just turn this inside out. And you see it is pretty crazy in here, but the great thing about this hat is it's a double layer hat, so we actually won't be able to see all of this crazy mess once the hat is finished because it's going to be inside of the 2 layers. But we do need to secure these ends because we don't want the duplicate stitching to look loose or anything. So since the inside of this isn't even really accessible, I'm not going to do anything too crazy. I'm going to just secure them very minimally. And you can just do this however you want. If you just want to tie a knot or something, like, that is going to be plenty fine. I'm just going to do that. That's good enough. And I should make it clear that we are securing all of the ends in this hat except for this end from our cast on and this end from our cast off. Do not secure those yet, but you can secure every other yarn tail that we have. So where the color change happened, you can secure those. You can secure all the ends from your duplicate stitching, secure all of those ends, but do not secure your cast off or your cast on ends. We still need to deal with those later, so I just wanted to make that clear. So just continue weaving in all of your ends, securing them in whatever way you see fit. Okay, all of my ends are secured except for, like I said, my cast on and cast off ends. We still need those, so make sure that you still have them. All right, I'm gonna turn this back right side out. Now grab one of these yarn tails, the cast on or cast off, whatever, whichever one, and just pull it tight. We're gonna create the top of our beanie right now. So pull that tight. We'll leave that for a second and then pull the other end tight. All right, and take a darning needle and we're gonna just sew right through like all of these stitches on the top, right around this little hole that's left from tightening the end of your tube. I just go all the way around, but I guess you don't even have to, but I don't know. I just like to go all the way around. It feels more secure to me. So there. Just pull it really tight, and then you can go ahead and tie a knot just to make sure that this is not going to come undone. Tie your knot. Now I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. So you've tightened the other side, then take the yarn tail that's left, use your darning needle, and go through like all of the stitches on the top. This really doesn't need to be that precise either. You're just making sure that this hole doesn't open up. And then I'll tie a little knot. So once both of the ends are closed and secured, you're gonna fold the white end inside of the red end. So just fold it inside like this. And then you're gonna take this red yarn tail here and you're gonna put the needle through the center hole here at the top of your hat. And then you're going to feed it through to the inside and turn this inside out. Feed it through the center hole of the white one and bring the yarn tail through, and we're going to tie a few knots. So this will make sure that this stays as a double layer. It won't be able to, the inside won't be able to fall out. The double layer will stay put. So just tie a few knots. And then put both of these tails through your darning needle. And we are going to weave it through in between the layers here. So then once you've done that, you can just kind of pull a little on it, snip that off, and just massage it. And those yarn tails are gone. You cannot see them anymore because they are in between the double layers here. And then just fold that up, and you've got yourself a mushroom beanie. That's all there is to it. This is finished. It's a really quick project. It would make a great gift for someone. It's pretty easy, I think. It takes a little bit longer than most other Centro hats just because you're doing this decoration on here, but it still only takes a few hours, and I think it looks really, really good. Very cute, and it's nice and warm too because it's this double layer. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, then remember to give it a like and consider subscribing if you like circular knitting machine content. If you make this hat, then remember to tag me on Instagram. I would love to see y'all's finished projects. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!